Prepare yourselves for a battle of epic proportions between two titans. Feast upon their voices and revel in their words. This is Dueling Ogres.
Hello, Ogres, and welcome to episode 112. Thank you for joining us, as always, on this Abby-something Tuesday evening, Earth date, May 9th, 2017. I'm your host, Remington Hitchcock, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Grover Harrington. How are you doing, Grover?
I'm doing good. It took you a couple tries to get through that opening there, Rim.
Listen, what they won't know won't hurt them.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll edit it out, but...
It'll be smooth as sailing butter.
Yeah,
smooth as butter sailing. Smooth as sailing on melted butter.
You're still managing to raise the bar continuously with your pronunciations.
All I want to do is be better at being better.
I just want to bang on my gong all day.
I just want a better butter. Isn't that what the old...
Better butter and bitter butter.
Better butter, bitter butter?
Yes.
Bitter, better butter?
I think so.
We've talked a lot about butter this episode.
Yeah, it's a pretty butter-heavy episode.
Yeah, I mean, people don't know it, but we have an interview that we're going to get to here in just a few minutes. Mm-hmm. But we're recording, behind the scenes. We're recording the intro and the outro after the fact.
Yeah.
Because we like to make sure that you know what's really going on in the world.
We don't pull the wool over your eyes like some other podcasts do.
Yeah, like certain podcasts that will not be named.
But...
Kapow, the Pop Culture Podcast.
To be fair, you didn't mention eating butter in the interview proper. That'll be the outtakes.
Oh, okay.
So really, we didn't talk about butter that often. We made 2 mentions of butter.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and remedy that. Do you prefer butter or do you like the vegetable oil spread?
I use both.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the application. Sometimes real butter is better, and sometimes margarine spread is better.
Do you have both of them on hand?
Yes. And no, we always use salted butter. We never use unsalted butter.
Okay.
Because salt is good.
Yeah, and good for you.
And
especially mixed with butter.
Especially in high concentrations.
See, I always get whatever's the cheapest butter outside of like the sticks.
Yeah.
That I don't even try to pretend to be butter. It's just like 100 or 90% vegetable oil spread, and you don't really know what's in it.
Yeah.
It just always concerns me when butter is like $1, you know?
Yeah.
And I still buy it and I put it on toast and stuff, but...
You don't even know, is it plastic that you're putting in your body?
Basically, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's some butter thoughts for you.
I mean, we do some country crock,
Yeah.
That's what we usually buy.
Can you believe it's butter? Or can you not believe?
Well, that's not butter, so...
It's not butter.
No.
Okay.
It's vegetable oils.
We've got a lot of opinions on butter, so strap in, guys.
Yeah.
You're going to be here a couple hours.
This is going to get real heavy real fast. No. That's not what we're doing today.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I've got pages and pages of butter notes.
Well, you'll have to save that for episode 113.
Okay, fine. It's all gone.
Yep. Burn it.
Done.
Burn it to the ground. Actually, so this is an interview episode, and then we have another interview episode next week, right?
Yep. As long as things work out.
Yes.
It's tentative. I mean, it should, but...
Yeah, there's no reason why it shouldn't.
Don't promise them things. Don't break promises.
I never make promises that I can't keep.
Okay.
Except to you.
Yeah.
I break every promise that I've ever made to you.
You promised we would have an entire episode about butter, and here we are.
Yep. I never said when.
Oh, okay. It's one of those things?
Yeah. See, I'm still in the clear on this promise.
Yeah, I feel like you're skating by on a technicality, but I can't quite catch you.
Hey, man.
You've got those Yamaguchi moves. I just can't catch up.
Yamaguchi moves?
Yeah. Wasn't she an ice skater?
Yeah.
So, relevant reference.
Just, wow. Okay. So before we get to the interview, as Brandon confuses me with his 1996 references, what have you been up to, buddy?
I've been playing Prey, new Xbox One game. I've been enjoying that a lot. But mainly this last week has been preparing for the interview you're going to hear.
Yes.
I did a lot of investigation's not the right word. That makes me sound like a creep. I did a lot of investigating this man.
Yes. You did a lot of peeping through windows and driving all the way to Michigan.
Watching what he wears.
Yeah.
How he wears it. when he wears it.
Yeah.
No, I just preparing a lot of notes, watching some of his movies, reading some of his writings, etc., etc.
So I have done none of those things.
Yeah.
Because I'm a terrible host.
You've just been relaxing in an armchair
Yes.
out on the front porch with your big speakers in front of you that you turn on as it blows you backwards with your sunglasses on.
Yeah, I'm drinking a martini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he's drinking a Coke, right?
Is he drinking a
You know
Coke?
that, I don't think he's drinking a martini.
I don't remember that commercial.
Nobody sits and listens to rock music with sunglasses on drinking a fucking martini.
Was I referencing the Family Guy when they were doing that with Carter Pewterschmidt? I think I might have been.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Because I think that guy had it was like a Magnavox commercial, right? Or something.
Yeah,
Sony,
yeah,
Magnavox.
something. Yeah,
martini,
one of those martini. Yeah,
big martini.
yeah. This is making no sense, Brandon.
No, it doesn't have to.
Should
we have
we-
a good interview, so this can all just be bullshit.
This is garbage.
Yeah, we can just gargle. Gargling garbage.
Gargle garbage.
Dueling Ogres. It's gargling garbage.
Oh, self-deprecation is our friend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, if you don't have anything more to add,
I mean, I'd like to talk about Prey some, but, you know, I want to get into the interview.
okay.
And I have a lot I could say about it.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of boring stuff, too. I mean, I'm enjoying the story, so I would just go on and explain the story and talk about how much I like it. It wouldn't be good listening.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying Prey. If you have an Xbox One or PlayStation 4 and haven't bought it, check out Prey. It's a thumbs up from Brandon.
Okay. So I guess we should just jump right into the interview then.
Yeah, unless you have nothing interesting that you've done this week.
No, I've literally done nothing interesting.
Okay. Which is a shocking change from what you normally do.
Yeah, it's a stark difference.
You normally have tales of adventure on the high seas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No high sea adventures.
Dungeon delving.
No dungeon delving.
Statuette. Hustling.
Hustling. What?
Yeah, I don't know.
Am I stealing statues now?
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Like the armless David.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got that in my front lawn.
Isn't that thing like 15 feet tall? Isn't that statue gigantic?
Yes, it's massive.
So how'd you steal it?
That's
Pachyderms?
That's a trick of the trade, Brandon.
Oh, okay.
I can't reveal that.
That'll be on our new podcast coming up.
Tricks of the trade.
But trick spelled with an X because we frame it in the context of cereal.
Because apparently we're still living in the 1996s where X's were still popular.
Yes.
It's extreme, yo.
I mean, they couldn't call it trick cereal and spell it CKS
Why not?
because people would think prostitutes. If I saw a cereal called Trix spelled CKS, all I would think is the cereal tastes like prostitutes or is made by prostitutes. Made by prostitutes, I'll give it a shot. Tastes like prostitutes, not 100% on board.
Fair. I guess I can't really argue with that. I also figure that it depends on whether or not it's a high dollar prostitute.
Yeah. And I think technically now we're supposed to call them sex workers.
Are we?
I think so.
Is that the proper terminology? Is that what they go out on their tax forms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sex worker is the less deprecating term than
Mhm.
prostitute.
Okay. So sex worker is less deprecating than prostitute?
Well, I think it's because of connotation. Prostitute has the connotation of like the joke I just made about probably tasting gross, whereas sex worker is more of like a high class.
See, I figure
Like a sex worker is somebody who's going to work in Nevada where it's legal. I think that's what sex worker is.
Okay. I don't know. See, prostitute to me sounds like saying penis. Like that's the medical term. Now, if I were to call him a hooker, then that would be something completely. That would be a derogatory term.
A hooker?
Yeah, a hooker.
Yeah, hooker's not really used anymore, is it?
I don't know. I say hooker a lot.
Well, you
Especially
still
when I
a lot of
order hookers,
prostitutes.
yeah.
Do you say hooker?
Yeah.
See, I think realistically, if you were to call up an escort service and say, I want a hooker,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be okay with it.
Well, probably not. But I mean, you have to have an air of professionality.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Is that a word?
Perfect, yep.
You know, when you're ordering something on the phone, you know, you just, it's like if you order a sex toy.
Yeah, okay, see, now we're tying it into the interview sort of.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because our next guest once did a movie about a sex toy that had been possessed.
Yep, that I don't think we bring up until the outtakes. So you'll hear us talking about it at the end. I don't think we actually talked about it in the interview proper.
It's true, but Brandon did gush about it.
I did.
It was one of his favorites.
There was a lot of gushing going on in, around, and about that movie.
Yes. So let's get on to the interview right now. With us today is true Renaissance man, writer, actor, wrestler, teacher, stand-up comedian, director. You name it, he's probably done it. With well over 70 credits on IMDb, over 30 author credits between books and graphic novels and comics, and even a few music video appearances under his belt, we're pleased as punch to welcome David C. Hayes to the show. David, how you doing today?
I am doing well. That's a Renaissance man. My wife actually calls me a low Renaissance man because it's all just crap. So she loves me.
She does. I'm just glad that I'm not the only person who's ever thought of you as a Renaissance man.
Well, I do like classic Renaissance, not so much.
I mean, you have the wrestler credits, so you kind of have the physicality, right?
I used to. That was a dalliance. I have what I suffer from is occupational envy. And if I see something really cool, I'm going to want to try and do it.
Yeah.
And it's been mitigated in recent years the older I get, but that's resulted in the wrestling excursion, the stand-up comedy excursion, the trying to be a professional paranormal investigator excursion, just levels of stupidity.
Well, I didn't even see that. You tried to be a paranormal investigator?
Oh, yeah. I can't put everything all around. I was in Arizona. And completely infatuated with the Ghost Hunters TV show, and I'd always been interested in the paranormal.
Yeah.
So I hooked up with the Arizona Paranormal Society, and we cleaned houses and of spirits,
right?
And
burning the sage and all that.
Oh yeah, all kinds of crazy things like with the meters and the EMF detectors and coming up with new inventions that supposedly trapped a ghost. You know, the usual. And I finally hit the pinnacle of this when we were in Jerome, Arizona, investigating an old burn hospital that filled with burn patients burned down.
Holy God.
In the 20s.
Wow.
And it was thick, just thick in there. And after that, I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna take a long break."
Yeah, I bet that one was pretty intense.
It was intense. Whether there was anything there or not, I couldn't tell you. But the feeling alone was just wow. Like the 200 people just died of their worst fears.
Wow.
And they were burned already, and then they burned down.
Yeah, that's a real heavy.
Did you come out of your experiences as a paranormal investigator with more of an opinion leaning one way or the other as far as the paranormal goes?
I always believed that there was something else out there because it's more fun to believe that generally. But I would say that it strengthened my resolve that there's something. There's something beyond. I'm not sure what it is, and I'm not sure if it's intelligent, and I'm not sure if it thinks and moves and does stuff. But I think there's something out there.
Yeah.
See, I'm the quintessential skeptic. I haven't had any experiences that would lean me toward I can get behind, believing in a ghost or something like that.
Right. And there's a lot of people like that. I just feel like, like Sasquatch. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to believe because that's just a hell of a lot more fun.
Well, I mean, you're talking to one right now, so.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing.
Very eloquent.
It's still amazing that you own a house and have a mortgage and nobody's caught you on camera, Remington.
It's true. Why do you think I do a podcast?
In this day and age, you got to go to the ATM.
Yeah.
At some point, there's going to be a camera somewhere.
He puts on a trench coat and a fedora. It's like a film noir kind of thing.
Like Dark Man.
Yeah. See, like now a Sasquatch, I can believe in Sasquatch. I mean, there is a ton of very thick foliage out in the West. And I mean, we have the skunk ape and stuff down in Florida as well.
Skunk ape.
Yeah. I guess that one could exist as well. But I mean, I'm all for the Sasquatch existing. But when it comes to like proper ghost paranormal stuff, I don't know. I just haven't had. I've heard bumps in the night, and I can so easily explain it away that it seems unlikely that it could be anything else.
Right. The hardest thing I have to explain, because I want to explain stuff away. I really want to, make sure that the experience is a genuine thing. And the hardest thing I have explaining is the EVPs, the voice recordings.
Yeah.
That's I've had a couple. I've experienced a couple. I've had stuff running, near that hospital when we were sleeping. My wife and I went to do this, and stuff came up in the middle of the night between snores, and I wasn't awake, she wasn't awake, and hopefully no one was in the room.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty creepy. The problem that I've had watching these ghost hunter shows is that they'll put subtitles under it, kind of explaining to you what you hear, and I feel that can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it influences what you think. I can't remember the term where you hear like you see faces and things in clouds and stuff, and you hear noises. Like your brain wants to make sense of things that are nonsensical.
Yeah, it's like a persistence of vision.
Yeah.
Sort of deal. Yeah, that's they're totally coercing you into going one way with it, and that's the point of it too. That's the entertainment element.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
First and foremost, and those guys, I think half of those shows, probably more, are completely rigged.
Oh yeah.
And some are more obvious than others. I only watch one. I really like those Ghost Adventures guys. Mainly because they're just complete douchebags. It's like three bros from New Jersey.
Yeah,
have decided to roll out and take on the paranormal.
Yeah, and
I love it.
He's constantly like calling out the ghosts,
he's trying to fight them.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh yeah. With his fake tap out shirts.
Yeah.
And, like, come on, you want to pick on someone? Pick on me.
Yeah.
And then, two commercial breaks later, they're all screaming and crying and running into corners. And it's lovely. A few seasons, I really got into it a few seasons ago when every episode they were getting possessed by something.
Yeah, I remember
watching these guys get possessed is the funniest thing you have ever seen. Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I can't get enough. That's going out to you, Zach Baggins. If you listen to Dueling Ogres, oh, you're my spirit animal. You're my Patronus, baby.
Oh, you're letting that Harry Potter slip in, aren't you?
Well, always. Harry Potter goes where Harry Potter wants.
I can't remember where I was on your website, because your website is it has so much on it.
It's pretty ridiculous.
I remember reading at some point where you say, an unfortunate thing is that I'm a big Harry Potter fan or something like that.
Yeah. And so I raised my niece, and she's turned into a really big Harry Potter fan too.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And she works the Comic-Cons with me and stuff, so she's pretty well versed in geek world. But I've been trolling her recently because she's a Potter defender.
Yeah.
And there's Star Wars defenders, there's Star Trek defenders. So, in the middle of a conversation, I'll be like, oh, hey, wasn't that great when Dumbledore helped Frodo open the door to Minas Tirith? And she'll just go nuts. Like, he wasn't there. Potter defender. So trolling preteens is my hobby.
That's a good hobby to have. They need trolled as often as possible.
I've been arrested for that a few times.
Nice. In 7 years, I'll be able to go back to Wisconsin. So we're counting down those days.
All right. So let me get into the basic questions first off. The stuff I'm sure you've answered a million times, but for our listeners who may not have heard you elsewhere. What started your interest in writing? Because as Remington said, with you being prolific, you've written movies, you've directed, you've written books, you've written comic books. Where did that interest in writing and creating come from? Like, was there a certain moment in your younger life? Was there a book that you read or a movie that you saw that kind of flipped a switch that said, I want to do that?
There's a few things, and I'm going to preface it with everything I've ever done has been about storytelling. Even the wrestling stuff, it's it's all about telling a story, and I think I've been kind of addicted to that ever since I was little. My mom used to have a book that I wrote and illustrated about when I was in third grade, I think, about a kid that goes to a haunted house and beats up all these monsters for cookies. And it's just, ridiculous kid stuff, but it laid the foundation there. And I think that growing up in the 70s and 80s really, really, really helped because they didn't care what was on TV at that time.
Yeah.
And so I saw this thing as a kid. There was a movie. It was on. I'm from Michigan, so it's on WKBD Channel 50, and it was the Ghoul. He was the horror host at the time, And all I could remember, and I saw this when I was 5 or 6, was Christopher Lee was in it, and I knew who Christopher Lee was at the time because monsters were my favorite.
Right.
He was blue, and he was drawn and quartered.
Oh, God.
The only things I can remember about the movie, but they had this really profound effect, this profound feeling that the movie gave me about telling stories and being macabre and the beauty of the macabre.
Yeah.
And I found out later that the title of the film was Dr. Sadism's House of Horrors, which, is like Saturday morning fare in Michigan, apparently. And that went a long way. That and the Universal monsters really kind of shaped how I viewed storytelling and how things ebbed and flowed. Book-wise, there was 2 things. It's going to sound really weird. The first one's not so weird. It's Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I started reading that at a very young age, basically on a bet from my mom, who figured, oh, you can't understand it. And I was like, oh, yeah? I'm the spite-fueled machine and always have been, so I'm going to show you up.
I definitely, that's where my foyer into fantasy started. I started The Hobbit when I was in 5th grade, and in 6th grade read through The Lord of the Rings. So. Yeah.
And that's where we learned to tell stories too.
Yeah, exactly. And my 6th grade teacher, he was a big Tolkien fan. So whenever he found out that I was reading through it, he was like, yeah, there you go. Why don't you pick up the Silmarillion? And then he killed it for me because, the Silmarillion is terrible. But
in the Silmarillion's defense, it's just a bunch of notes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's okay if you're really into notes.
So, and then if you take the Silmarillion and you smash it with The Hobbit and you pull 3 movies out of it, then you're just rich.
Yeah.
And then what was the second book you were saying? You said there were 2
it was, I believe, and I don't remember the full title, but it was a Hardy Boys mystery. And they were investigating a werewolf. And a werewolf was forever and ever and ever and ever my favorite monster. And I love them, and I'm going to do a book on them soon, I hope, looking at werewolf movies. And in this book, it was one of the later ones, like number 50 or 60 or something like that.
59.
And
Night of the Werewolf.
Go ahead.
59, Night of the Werewolf.
Thank you. 59, Night of the Werewolf. And I learned in there just how easy it was to dupe a reader and deliver these really kind of cool denouements and play with timelines and use different narrative techniques to actually, not mislead, but to mislead people into thinking one thing when you're really going in a different direction.
Yeah.
And that was like my light bulb moment reading this book that was a ghost written for Franklin Dixon by some unnamed person in a factory, in the Random House factory basement. And just, whoa, look at the power here. And I can do this on my own. So that really kind of pushed that forward for me.
So did you continue writing from that point on? Like you mentioned the book with the kid who was killing monsters. And I got to ask, was he killing monsters because people were giving him cookies to kill the monsters, or was he killing the monsters and gaining cookies from their deaths?
Well, he never killed monsters. He just beat monsters up.
Okay.
And he happened to be there, and at the end of it, they gave him cookies.
Oh,
so
okay.
It wasn't like he would just happen to be hanging out, beating up monsters, and then cookies came.
Oh, nice.
So, I think it was more wishful thinking than anything. Like, man, I wish I could beat up some monsters. Oh, yeah, and then get cookies.
It was just a happy accident the cookies had to be around.
Exactly. I've always been fascinated with this author. Have you heard of Harry Stephen Keeler?
No.
Okay, he's a mystery guy in the 1920s. He lived in Chicago, and he would call himself the master of the web work plot. So he would take like 15 or 20 headlines from different things and smash them all together and make these completely convoluted narrative mystery stories. They were just absolutely crazy. So one headline would be convict escapes. Second headline, train robbery happened. Third headline, PTA meeting goes well. Fourth headline, tiger in zoo dies. So he would take all these together and smash them into a single plot. calling them web work mysteries, and it's just fascinating stuff to read. So that's kind of the third grader approach to storytelling. Oh, monsters, cookies, smash them.
So why do you think that you gravitated towards horror/thriller specifically in your writing? I mean, because it seems like from what I've read, that seems to be the bulk of your writing. Outside of some of the autobiographical stuff that you've written,
Right.
the Ed Wood Jr. book specifically.
I think a lot of it is due to escapism. I desperately wanted to be left alone as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I still now, my family gives me my birthday gift every year of just leaving me the fuck alone for a full day. And I love it. I would spend most of my time alone, interacting online only. I am, I hope to be a hermit one day. And I think that's largely stems from, I didn't want to deal with real life stuff, because real life is, was really annoying and hurtful. And growing up the way I did, looking like this Cro-Magnon, and lots of bullying and getting picked on, and there's escapism in monsters, because monsters could be noble. Horror could be noble. The cathartic response from watching someone escape a bad guy was the rush I needed, because it's the pure escapism of it. And when we're dealing with the fantastic, then we can get away with many more things than when we're dealing with real life situations. So, for example, we all want to not only tell stories but have a message as well. And all well done literature and all well done stories, well made stories, all have a message or a theme that they need to deliver.
Right.
And the things that I like to talk about, the things that I think need to change in the world, are kind of bitter pills to swallow. And I find when we wrap them in fantasy, or we wrap them in horror, or we wrap them in thriller, we have a chance to activate what's known as the traveler theory, where we can change someone's mind in the body of a narrative. And once the narrative's over, they can retain that changed stance.
Yeah.
So, it's a whole convoluted series of things of my upbringing and the most effective ways, or maybe not so effective, but fun ways of delivering bitter pills.
So do you think, going back to you talking about being bullied growing up, do you think that monsters in writing kind of also help tap into that sort of misunderstood thing that finally gets pushed too far? Frankenstein being the perfect example,
Right. It's totally the perfect example. I think that, combined with my werewolf fascination, stems directly from, me being afraid of where my snapping point it was as a kid.
Right.
A moon got these guys to change, but wow. I mean, I could feel real anger and real sort of angst and a real, animal tendency. And I kept in control was great, but what happens if that explodes out there? So that was one of those things that I worried about as a kid. Not that there was any evidence that I was ever going to snap and kill a bunch of people,
right.
But it was concerning, because I felt really, really angry without an outlet. And the monsters gave the outlet too. There's nobility in being misunderstood. My favorite comic character of all time is the Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And my geek street cred is having every Swamp Thing appearance ever in the comics. Yeah, take that. And but his story is real similar there. There's a deep intellect and someone who's an avatar of the entire planet, trapped in this hulking body that gets nothing but derision and shame and mockery and scorn. And yet he persists. So I always, would fancy myself as this misshapen thing that, even despite all that, would persist. So there's the aspiration to Swamp Thing, the fear of being the Wolfman, and really somewhere along the middle that misunderstood monster who just doesn't want to make a mistake. So vacillating between all three of these things and everything in between was the safe zone where monsters and creatures and horrors and thrillers and things like that. And I grew up in the 80s, 70s and 80s. So the slasher was really our pop culture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there's comfort in that.
I grew up, I was very small growing up in like elementary school. And then I gained a bunch of weight. So through elementary school, I was picked on a lot. And, as I'm sure a lot of people, not to be sort of stereotypical, but I feel like a lot of people who are into this sort of horror comics, geek culture often connects with people who had a hard time growing up in one way or another,
Right.
So, I dealt with the same thing where I had so much anger inside of me, and I felt like, I kind of connected to these monsters in the same way of if only at some point I could just grow strong and make these people realize that I'm somebody different than who they think I am,
Right. Oh, yeah. It's like the complete opposite of what I was doing, because I was the misshapen Hulk, and you were the tiny picked on.
I was the pudgy kid with glasses who walked through gym class.
Gotcha. I was the big guy that was always the target because, we can beat that guy up.
Yeah, you were the test.
But I don't want to beat anyone up.
Yeah.
Well, in Remington, you've always been a bigger guy. And you've had a beard since you were in like 4th grade.
Right.
But were you really given shit in elementary school? I mean, in junior high and high school, you were popular because you took on like a very clownish persona, if I can say. Like you were real smooth, but I mean, you were doing front flips on concrete because people were laughing at it. You know?
Yeah. There were a few times in my life. See, I've always been a very jovial guy, and I've been naturally very zen for most of my life. Any of my anger issues was usually worked out between me and my sister.
Yeah.
So
Thunderdome style.
Yeah, Thunderdome style. 2 come in, 1 go out. And
your sister's a man?
Yes. And but my real cementing point of this Zen mentality that I've kind of always had came from when I did a report early on in 7th grade, I think, on Socrates. And I went to the library in the school, and I picked out a book on Socrates, and just the way that, the Socratic method of asking questions of everything was neat. But what I really took away from it, there's this one story, and I think I've actually talked about this on the podcast before, but where there was another philosopher who had written a play about Socrates. And it was just making fun of Socrates and his Socratic method. And the other philosophers were like, are you going to let this stand? I mean, he's mocking you. And Socrates is like, if I can't laugh at myself, then what business do I have laughing at anything else?
Yeah.
So that's what's really cemented, like, people can say whatever they're going to say about me. I've got a thick skin. Literally, and figuratively. and my friends were my hardest audience.
we were pretty shitty to you in junior high.
I mean, they were terrible. I mean, my nickname was Lunchbox for a long time. So,
did you, David, through junior high and into high school, did you do any sort of performance theater? Were you any sort of like performance guy?
As a smaller kid, I did. Where I grew up, though, that's a sure sign to get your ass beat on a daily.
Were you? You grew up in Michigan? You said.
I did. Yeah, I grew
up
town? In a smaller town, right in between Lansing and Detroit. If you're through a straight line between them, it's directly in the middle.
Okay.
And it's not a wonderful place for free thinking and artistic expression.
Yeah.
A big reason why I largely gave up storytelling and writing in my college years and in through my early 20s was because that's just not what you did.
Yeah.
It's either you go to school and become a lawyer, or you sit here and you work at the body shop with your Uncle Fred.
Right.
And those are your options. But yeah, there was no theater to speak of really, and I'd done it as a kid, and I really loved it, and I probably would have gone more into it if I actually thought there was a safe way to handle it. But I actually went into wrestling. I joined the wrestling team, and first for to put on my beard, so to speak, in my defense. And then I actually enjoyed it. So it turned into something that I really started to love, the athletic competition of it. And again, there was no team involved. I was by myself. I was dependent on myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have to count on anyone else. And if I lost, it's because I lost because I wasn't good enough. And if I won, it's because I was better than you, asshole. Ha ha.
Yeah, I was in wrestling through elementary school and a little bit into junior high, so I know what you're talking about. It falls on your shoulders.
Right, and I love that part of it because again, that's all the whole part of just leave me alone.
Yeah,
I'll do it. Just let me do it. So, but yeah, my first time as an adult on stage, do you guys remember the Iowa tests in school? Did you ever take those?
What is it, like the physical fitness stuff, or are you talking like the standardized testing
the
stuff?
Standardized tests.
Yeah.
ITBS, things like that.
Yeah.
I had a job writing the reading comprehension things from those when I got out of college in Chicago.
Oh, neat.
And no, it's horrible. And I quit and I joined and I started working at this coffee shop. And the coffee shop was down the street from a late night theater. They would do late night weekend theater, just crazy stuff. And I would embezzle coffee and give anyone in this theater troupe free coffee, whatever they wanted, every day until they put me on stage.
Yeah.
And I just begged and begged. And I never auditioned. And they had someone drop out, and I'm like, all right, well, he'll do.
So I like to picture you packing this coffee into like fake cargo crates and, putting something else. Are you embezzling coffee? No, I'm just taking money. It's totally different. It's not.
You guys know. I would never take. What?
You got a bunch of coffee in a suitcase.
These are old
bagels
bagels for homeless dudes. It was terrible. I completely broke the law, but I got my part, and they were doing a cross-gendered musical version of Carrie.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, how could that be better as my debut? So I played PJ Soul's part, and I didn't know if I could sing until I got there, and I really couldn't. But I faked it. I faked it like Albert Finney did in Scrooge. I sang.
Yeah.
And so we open up, and the first scene is me dressed as a woman, throwing tampons at a male Sissy Spacek impersonator, yelling "Plug it up," and it was magical. I went to acting boot camp in that theater company because it was me. I was the one straight guy.
Yeah.
And so I got all the straight parts, but I was fighting literally 7.5 foot tall drag queens for stage space.
Oh,
and they do not give it up easily.
I don't figure.
So that was really acting boot camp for me. And I got to learn a lot about the craft in a very, very short period of time.
You said this was out of college?
This was well after college. This was 96, 97. So I was in my late 20s at that point.
And this was your first real brush with kind of straight up performance? Straight,
right.
Relative in this case.
Relatively straight performance.
Yeah.
For how about for close to professional performance?
Okay.
Or even good amateur. This is the first time I'd run across it, and it opened up a whole new world. And then I started, I get back into writing. And then I got back into writing, doing some short stories here and there. Went to film school for a couple semesters, dropped out, and started learning from the ground up as a key grip and a gaffer, where I was just hauling cable and setting lights and learning the stagecraft aspects of film as I was doing theater, and just trying to suck in as much as I could, as much information as I could about these different mediums, because, I still desperately wanted to tell stories, but I felt like I needed to know how it worked. I had to have the underpinnings.
Yeah.
So I did spend a couple of years in doing different theatrical plays before I wrote my first play. And that went up pretty well. It's still being produced. I just had a run in Chicago last year, and they put it up off Broadway in New York called Swamp Ho, which
is this about a hoey swamp person?
It is. It is about a swampy swamp person. It's you guys remember the 70s? It was like swamp exploitation movies, like Gator Bait and just crazy stuff set in the swamp. It's all bayou vixens being accused of murder,
Like muck monster kind of stuff.
No, like bayou intrigue, like thrillers. We've got people living in the bayou. They're accused of murder, but it's really the sheriff that wants to pin it on him because he's running drugs and really weird exploitation things. And it's along those lines. It's a pretty broad comedy. That's kind of splattery. With that sort of stuff, so it really kind of throws up the genre itself, as well as where we are as B movie filmmakers too.
You know what I love about what you're saying, and we've had a few authors on here before, and all of them, the ones that we've had so far, got started later in life. I mean, you said you were doing this in late 20s, so that's not late in life, obviously, but
it
you
felt
often,
late.
you often. I'm 32. And I get this feeling a lot too of like kind of just spinning my wheels, and hearing these kind of stories, makes me feel better that you're like, it wasn't until my late 20s that I even started embezzling coffee. And that's what I've always wanted to embezzle something. And this, I think, has inspired me to do that.
You should start embezzling things.
But no, just the idea that you can, there's not really a time limit on when you can start doing something you love.
No. I mean, look at Stan Lee. He didn't actually create Spider-Man until he was well into his 40s.
Yeah, and he's 132 now.
Right. Maybe even more. Depends on how many souls he ate at the last convention. He said he's going to move forward.
That's right. That's why he calls them true believers.
Because they are.
So with writing horror and writing horror movies, I watched Blown, and then I watched a lot of trailers for other movies that you had done. Blown, which we talked about, we got some of it on recording. I'm sure we'll put it in like the outtakes, us discussing it a little bit. Blown is about a killer blow-up doll who's brought back to life by a gypsy.
Oh, God.
What are your feelings on tropes in horror movies? Like you have the classic trope of if the teenagers go have sex, they're going to die. The horror, the slasher, the killer themselves is always going to teleport to where they need to be, no matter whether logically they could actually travel there in time.
Right.
Do you think tropes are good, or do you think at this point they're kind of overdone?
Well, by definition, a trope would be overdone. And I think that there's a hinge, and the hinge was in 96. So Scream comes out, and Scream starts to make those tropes something that's no longer the elephant in the room. We talk about them now. They just don't happen. We talk about them. And then prior to Scream, I think most people believed they were necessary. Most screenwriters or most studios believed they were necessary, in large part because there was no way really to access independent film for most people. So indie film was where these tropes were being demolished and smashed and turned inside out and released again and tried again, and new things were happening. But that wasn't happening for the studios until Scream happened.
Right.
And when Scream happened, it brought it all to the surface, where we actually called a trope a trope. We called a stereotype a stereotype. And since then, I think that some of the more unsuccessful and more insipid films that have been released have stuck to these tropes, but most times we're seeing the really critically acclaimed things and the more interesting things move beyond them and get rid of the trope. Because when you do see them, you see them in things like big budget horror releases that are designed as star vehicles. So the people going to see that aren't necessarily the true horror fans.
Yeah.
I don't know a horror fan that would actively agree to go see a PG-13 horror film.
Yeah.
But they're what comes out because that's what, a bunch of the uneducated, unwashed masses want to go and see.
Right.
But now we have Netflix, and we have cool things like Amazon and all these different places where independent film, whose job it is to do the exact opposite of studio films, are really enjoying this brand new renaissance, and people are seeing things that they never have before. So that largely, when you want to find something cool that's trope free, you can. If you need those tropes to get you through your horror films because they're tried and true comfort food, like the grilled cheese and tomato soup, then those are there as well. But I don't think they're absolutely necessary anymore.
Do you think there's still a place for them, though? I mean, you're as far as comfort goes.
Oh yeah, there's always a place for them. There's always going to be a place for a classic, vampire story.
I almost
screaming maidens and all that.
I almost feel like, with you saying Scream really drawing attention to them, which I agree with for sure, almost making fun of a trope has at this point kind of become its own trope.
Yeah.
Like it's so circuitous, but it's like giving a nod and a wink to like, we know this is a trope is almost just as kind of hacky now.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, that's a trope in and of itself. So now what we have to do is deconstruct the trope. And that in large part that's being done. Look at things like It Waits. That's great. Babadook, deconstructing tropes.
Oh yeah, Babadook wasn't my favorite horror movie for sure, but I appreciated a lot of what it did with the sort of psychological element, and even up until the end, giving that idea of, is this monster genuine or is this monster kind of a representation of her inability to let go of loss?
Right. And that's great. That's what the independent film is doing. And so Babadook 20 years ago wouldn't have been seen by more than a handful of people or tape traders.
Yeah.
And now, it does really well on Netflix, and I think that we're seeing the advent of the series as well. The long form horror is when people are able to watch these in gluttonous sort of binges, that you're seeing a 12 episode horror story play out. The time frame is now allowing people to get rid of the tropes as well, because you can only have so many creaking doors and jumping cats in 12 episodes before it becomes redundant. So that's requiring people to start to think out of the box as well, which is really cool.
Do you have any opinion on like a serial show like American Horror Story or American Scream Queens? I think is one that's been going on. Do you watch any of those?
I try to, and I don't get around to watching much television just because of time. But there's some that are really well done and some that aren't so well done. I think that I like Scream Queens. I watched the first season, and yes, it was the wink, wink. We're doing a trope as a trope, but it was so over the top. And it was made so ridiculous, and it breached a lot of new ground too, because when we're really infusing a whole new genre in there too with the slapstick comedy coming out of the horror story, that I think it really worked in that sense. I could see where it could be done poorly too.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a case of really intelligent writing, and I think that's what it boils down to. It's the writing itself. When a horror movie or horror story fails, it's because we don't care about the characters.
Yeah. That's
100%. When we don't feel the danger they're in, then we don't have that cathartic response. We don't care if they live or die. We're not exhilarated when they survive or demolished when they're dead.
Right.
And if we don't care, then it doesn't work. What things like Scream Queens does is it takes that. We've got the meta, we've got the wink wink, we've got the over the top comedy. We have got some very, very wrong things happening, and by wrong I mean edgy humor, and we care. Oh my gosh, we have fully fleshed out characters. Holy crap, who would have thought? And that's the one thing that wasn't happening for the longest time. And something else Scream did was gave us fully fleshed out characters.
Yeah.
Whole cast. One of my favorite.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite movies of the last few years, and I've this is kind of divisive with some horror movie fans I know. One of my favorite mainstream horror movies is Cabin in the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it does that well. It does the kind of winky trope thing, but it's not even winking it. It puts it straight out there and incorporates that, a lot like Scream did, as part of the main plot of the movie.
Yeah, there's no wink about it. There's no nudge. It's like straight up, this is everything that we've ever done, and this is how what I liked about Cabin in the Woods, and I did enjoy it, was the notion that there's this factory.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the very cool metaphor for me is that look at what all that stuff that you guys love. That's just a giant factory with formulas. Look at you suckers. You got suckered. Yeah. And that's what I really loved about it. Because horror is formulaic, or it can be.
Yeah.
And so, there's only so many stories in the world to tell. I'm a big aficionado of the master narrative and Hearts of Darkness and Campbell's work. And I know that we've told the same story over and over and over again, but it's the drapes, we change the drapes in the room. Let's move the furniture around and make it feel different. And it's completely possible to do that.
Yeah, it's still the same room, but it has a completely different feel just because of where you've put it.
Exactly. So, and I think what's missing in horror and thrillers and generally science fiction and everything is not only we don't care about the characters, is we're not examining the human condition. And every story is about the human condition. I don't care if it's set in the Civil War or during a zombie apocalypse or in a slasher film or whatever. It's the human condition that resonates with the audience, the thing that they can pull together and hang on to. That's why The Walking Dead works. It's not because of the zombies; it's because of the human condition, and they're following the same emotional beats as MASH. So if you're going to copy something that's genius.
That's true.
Has the guy broken down in Walking Dead yet and admitted that he was killing people instead of a chicken? Wasn't that MASH? Didn't the guy cry on the bus and say it was a person?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's great. I gave up on The Walking Dead when they started doing the weird Italian Mad Max ripoff people.
I think a lot of people have really given up on The Walking Dead at this point.
So, and it's just the human condition can only persist so long if it's the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think that for me, I only watched the first season of The Walking Dead, and for me, I mean, I'm not a huge horror fan. I'm sorry to disappoint. That's one of the reasons why Brandon has done most of the talking, is because I don't know a whole lot about what you guys are talking about. But when it comes to The Walking Dead, like it was so heavy for me. There was so much human condition that I like the escapism of just something that's not so incredibly fleshed out. Like everybody had their own little story and their own little nuances. And for me, that was a lot to swallow, especially in that first season where they're really introducing all of these characters.
Well, and that's what I love about the horror genre is there's so many different types. You're not a fan of like the more character-driven stuff. There's a million different movies that you could find something that would fit your, not so many jump scares or not gory or
like I don't mind
more nudity. You know?
Way more nudity, like Blown,
Yeah.
There were some nice boobies in that. But yeah, jump scares are my bane. No matter how cool I am with everything else, a jump scare will get me every time.
I just feel like a jump scare is such a cheap way to get a reaction from the audience.
And that's why I hate it so much, is because I feel dumber after doing it.
Yeah.
I feel dumb that I jumped at it.
The jump scare has a place. Now, I enjoy using the jump scare if it's a setup for something else. The jump scare it's very cheap, yes, but if I can get the heart rate going to a point and then let it mellow out for a second and then really come back with something that's not jumpy, but more what do we call those, ooh scares?
Oh yeah,
scares versus ooh scares. And then I think it works really well it works as an appetizer, but as the sum total of the scares you get, not so much.
Yeah.
What would be an example of like an ooh scare, like something gross?
Remember so I use this in class a lot. The scene in Halloween, and she had just dumped oil on her clothes. The friend of Lori, and she is on the phone talking to Lori in that big house in her underwear, and she's walking in front of a plate glass window or a big door wall window thing. She's on the phone. She walks past it and no one's there. She turns around and the camera's following her. She walks past it again and Michael Myers is standing there out of nowhere.
Yeah.
She goes away. We follow her. She comes back and he's out of the window again.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. And it's all from blocking.
Yeah.
It's very smooth. We're following her in a basic, camera move, following someone talking on the phone. And we just put something in there that is completely horrifying. She doesn't know about it. And we care so much about her that her not knowing that person's there has got our anxiety going.
Right.
And then and that's coming off the scene before, which was a jump scare with a cat in the laundry room.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of primed and we're given simply, blocking. We put an actor somewhere, completely obvious, and we took him away.
Yeah.
So an ooh scare is more of the anticipation of here's something that's going to happen. Here's the setup for something that's going to happen. We're going to give you
it's like a
time
bit of
to process it.
It's like a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's like foreshadowing.
Yeah.
When she's going to go. When's she going to go? Can she get out of it? She doesn't know. We know. And when we know and someone else doesn't know, and we're, that's when we get all those classic people yelling at the movie screen moments.
Yeah.
Like, don't go in there.
So do you like the slasher genre? Are you a fan of that?
I'm a huge fan. When it's done well, when it's done poorly, I love it. And it doesn't get old to me because that's my comfort food. That's my grilled cheese.
Do you have a favorite slasher?
Halloween, 1978.
So you're a Michael Myers guy?
Favorite movie of all time, too. Near perfect.
I watched Halloween 3 Season of the Witch a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
That's a movie for sure.
It's so good, though.
It's good in that it's different from the other Halloweens.
It's different from pretty much everything.
Yeah.
The concept, I really like Halloween 3, not as a Michael Myers movie because it's not.
Right.
But I think it's a really good, at the time, we're talking 83, and there's not many witch movies going on. There's not many, thinking movies going on. So something that highbrow coming out in theaters, well, that's kind of interesting. It didn't happen that much. And it's really intelligently written, which for horror at the time, we weren't getting much of it in 83. It was sequelville.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And so this brand new concept, I think if it was called Season of the Witch and just came out, then it would have failed miserably because no one would have seen it.
Right.
Now it came out, tons of people saw it, and it failed miserably because there was no Michael Myers in it. So, at least they made some money.
Yeah. So what is it about Michael Myers, do you think, that draws you to it? Is it him as a character or just the writing and the movies themselves?
At first I think it was the presentation in the film. Carpenter is such a good filmmaker that he made this face. They called him the Shape in the film or in the credits. The Shape completely menacing. Then when we get into the aspects of it, he just goes nuts for no reason. And I think that's really when horror works its finest, is when, the reasons aren't given on the silver platter.
Yeah.
This guy is just a killing machine that can't be stopped, and you can't reason with a machine.
Yeah. That's
the terrifying part about all of this. It just, you think he's human. He's not human. He doesn't care. He's really when it comes, if you're familiar with the work of Stephen Crane, and he wrote a story called The Open Boat, which is probably the most direct version of his sense of literary naturalism in the world, wherein nature doesn't care. It's not that it's out to get people. It simply does not even notice people. It is literally a force of nature that has absolutely no regard for anything else. And that's really, Halloween is a literary naturalist sort of film, where this force of nature has absolutely no regard. We don't know why it's doing these things. And the sister thing was for the sequel, so that didn't even come up until later.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
This is a force of flippin' nature, and you can't reason with it. You can't stop it. When you try and stop it, then it just keeps coming anyway, or it's put down for half a second. So that's what would really appeal to me about the slashers. And then everything after that is generally a giant ripoff, but the comfort food ripoff.
Yeah.
All the tropes that weren't tropes in Halloween became tropes.
Right. Yeah.
So do any of the things, because you have so many, like we mentioned, you have so many writing credits. Have you written anything that's sort of in the vein of that force of nature horror story?
Yes. The miniseries that we just finished up with at Source Point Press was it's called The Rot. And the character in that can project his own cancer out onto people. And, heaven's after him, hell's after him. CDC thinks he's this plague. And what he really is this force of nature that different areas of the world, both natural and supernatural, want to put in check. But he's got this completely off-the-wall agenda that's all his own. And that's kind of the ode to literary naturalism. Same thing with when you meld it with Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, then I kind of rip that off every time.
That was such a classic run, though.
Oh, it's so good.
Did you hear that there's a rumor they might be turning that story into an animated film?
Yeah, I heard the rumor. I'm a proud member of the Parliament of Trees on Facebook, and we discuss all things Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I saw him mess up the Killing Joke, so I don't know. Kind of terrifies me.
What'd you think of the Dark Knight animated? Did you watch that?
Saw that. Not so much.
Oh, you didn't like that one?
No.
See, Killing Joke I thought was kind of a swing and a miss on a lot of, especially the early stuff with Batgirl that was added in.
Right.
I thought Dark Knight was really good, though.
It was. I mean, it's okay, but it's. There's a reason that it wasn't an animated film to begin with. Your medium dictates a lot too. How you choose, your writing element determines of how people can react to these things as well. And I didn't think it worked as an animated film. I think it's static images, like really those stark Frank Miller static images of the classic ones, Batman hanging on the wall with the lightning behind them.
Yeah.
The fight with Superman, image panel by panel, is far more effective than in an animated film because you don't get the impact, I don't think, with fluid.
You're changing the piece just by the nature of changing the medium.
Right. Exactly. And it was when he did The Dark Knight Returns, he was at the top of his game. And that book shows.
Yeah.
David, as far as things you've been working on now, what are some of your most recent projects?
Right now, we just wrapped principal photography on the movie Rotten Tail about the giant mutant Easter bunny. It's based off of my graphic novel that I wrote, and I got to write the script. And it was really cool. It's shot in Arizona. It's for Sci-Fi Channel, although some other places have been knocking as well, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And if you remember Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Corin Nemec stars in the movie as Rotten Tail. And Dominique Swain's in it, and Billy McNamara, and all kinds of really cool things. So it's the biggest budget we've had to date. I'm not in it, so it's going to be good. And it's been this hugely wonderful experience with seeing the real crews and real big cameras and explosions and special effects. And the bunny makeup was done by this great team that worked on the Pirates of the Caribbean. So it's stellar stuff. And I don't know how to process it.
So did you direct?
No. It's directed by Brian Skiba, who I produced Blood Moon Rising for him many years ago, and he had gone on to Lifetime and Ion movies. So if you've ever seen Dean Cain in a Christmas film,
yeah, he
directed it, every one of them, and so he really cut his teeth there. And then we came together on this one with my management company, Shoreline Entertainment.
So the mutant rabbit is prosthetics. It's not like a big suit.
It is prosthetics and part suit, mostly prosthetics, great feet and hand stuff. Looks very, very, very good.
So for somebody out there who might be working on screenplays or something, I mean, you go through a production company. Is that how you shop a script around?
This one was a little different. Yes, that's generally how it goes. You go through an agent, but I as a screenwriter, I'm repped by Shoreline Entertainment as a management company, and they have a bunch of my properties. So if I write a book, I send it to them, and they've got the property there. Then if people are interested or they know something that's coming up, they'll put the property in front of them. And this kind of worked out where the publisher of the Rotten Tail graphic novel, Source Point Press, wanted to get into film production. So I, had them meeting. They wanted it specifically with Rotten Tail, And so I brought them together with Shoreline, and that worked out really well. And then I brought Brian in as he's with Shoreline as well. They manage him as a director, and they were really interested because they have, two revenue sources working on the same thing.
Right.
And SourcePoint's interested because they're the rights owner of the graphic novel, so they're not having to farm this out as well. And they started to raise a budget, and it just went from there.
Is there a projected release date for it?
Easter next year.
So is that what, I don't know whether you are or not, but you sound like you have your fingers really tightly entwined in all of that stuff, as gross as that is exactly meant to sound.
Nice. Like the Alfredo of the movie.
Is that something you enjoy? Like, you obviously enjoy the writing and you enjoy the horror, but do you enjoy the meetings or the...
Oh no, I hate them. I used to produce a lot more than I do now. Mm-hmm. I don't really do it now, aside from a web series I'm mulling over later this year. But in production, it takes the magic away from me.
Yeah.
I started acting because it was fun, and then it became how I paid my mortgage, and it no longer became fun.
Yeah.
Same thing with producing. And it no longer became fun, and the writing has always been there. Even though if I'm trying to make a buck at it, it's still a really good time. And I feel that as a writer, I still have so much more control over the story than I would even as a producer, because you have to make so many accommodations as things happen.
Yeah.
So I'm entwined in this to the extent that I'm helping where I can, but I do not want to come in and produce. That extra set of eyes is great. I'll come in and I'll look at anything and I'll give you my opinion, but I'm just a writer, man.
Yeah.
And I'm happy I'm being consulted.
Right. Yeah. I imagine that's not something that happens at all times in the process.
Oh no. Look at what some piss poor director can do to a movie like Blown. they'll butcher a script.
Well, David, I think that we have kept you hostage on here long enough. And, you still live in Michigan? I
do. I recently moved back.
Okay, so I want to release you back into the beautiful wilds of Michigan.
Where Sasquatch sightings have gone up 32% since I've been
here. But man, I have to say, it was awesome having you on. This has got to be one of my favorite interviews.
Thank you.
Fuck everybody we've interviewed before. I'm saying it now.
Oh,
this is the best one.
I'll give him a double finger from me.
Thank you. So yeah, we'd love to have you on again. I had a lot more questions I'd like to get to. If you're ever interested in coming back on, we'd love to have you.
Anytime you want.
So where can people find you online? Where's the best way to find your stuff and find you as a person? Or if you want to give your personal address, you can do that.
So going to the website's pretty good. It's davidchayes.com. So davidchayes.com. Lots of Amazon links and trailers and things on there. Facebook is facebook.com/abnormalent. Those are the two biggest spots. You can go to Amazon and search. Just put David C. Hayes in, and a bunch of shit piles up.
Yeah, you've got a lot of books and comics and movies on there.
Yeah, be wary. Some are better than others.
We'll put a big old list of links down at the bottom.
Cool.
And then you also have a podcast, which I wanted to mention because we found you through a site that we've used in the past that kind of connects interview subjects with podcasters and vice versa. It's like a big stew of people. A big delicious stew. And when I was
a public pool.
Exactly. And I was looking up stuff about you to see if you would be a good fit for our podcast, and I found you do a political podcast with two other guys called the No Cry Zone.
Correct. Yeah, we're a unabashedly left-leaning group of violent progressives.
Yeah, and I mean,
I know it's kind of oxymoronic, but yeah.
If anybody who is listening to this podcast, because we typically stay away from politics on this because it's more of like a geek nerd show or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes I let my left-leaning liberal side out for a few. But if anybody is a fan of political podcasts and doesn't get offended hearing left-leaning opinions, definitely check out No Cry Zone. Because, man, I got to say, I love it. I know I'm kissing your ass here a little bit, but I really enjoy it. I download every week.
Oh, thank you. It's fun. We just There's not enough. The left people on the left take themselves so seriously half the time.
Yeah, that is
You know?
my big problem with the left now. Is there's just so much seriousness and eye rolling about everything, and it seems like the left is so divided that we can hardly get anything fucking done.
Exactly, and and not to get political. Oh wait, but the right's total lockstep with one another.
Yeah.
So I've always said progressives are like herding cats. Everyone's got their own private agenda, and which is fine and cool because you think for yourself. But damn it, man, there's no way we're gonna stop the blockade.
Yeah.
Thinking for yourself, so just think like me. There, done.
Here you go.
Save the world. You're welcome.
There's your answer to everything. All right, David, it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that we could make your day a little brighter if we did.
And you have.
All right, man. Again, you can find David at the No Cry Zone or on his Facebook. Or
that's at nocryzone.com too. I think we actually have a website.
Yeah, you
do.
do.
Reels.
No Cry Zone, the nocryzone.com.
And we'll have links to all of this stuff in the show notes when you're listening to this episode. You can click on all of them.
In fact, you should, because that click-through rate is very important to the SEO.
Yes.
Right. And after you click, buy some shit because I got to pay rent.
That's right. All right. Thanks a lot, David.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
And thanks once again, David, for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it. We had a ton of fun talking to you.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the interview.
Yes. And we hope to have you on again soon.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I'm not
let's
making
face
it easy for you. here.
Because let's face it, you're better at this podcasting thing than Brandon is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I realized halfway through. I was just nodding at you.
I don't know if you knew this, Brandon, but we're on audio. Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean, I know I got a little gushy there at the end.
Yeah,
I
you
can't help
did.
it though.
It's okay. I mean, he was a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah, I enjoyed his work. I enjoyed the podcast I mentioned. So
I'd like to meet him in person. He's in Michigan. Maybe we can take a road trip sometime.
we should have asked him about con appearances. I know he makes con appearances.
Oh yeah, we should have. We'll have to invite him down to one of our cons one day.
We'll just have to figure out his address and show up at his doorstep one day.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Hey, David, remember us? We interviewed you.
It'll be a real good time. Come with us. We're going to go to convention.
Get in the van. We've got a convention out in the field we want to take you to.
It's not
I don't know what this voice is.
I don't know either. It's not a horror con, but it will be.
Creepy.
Yeah. You can take that character to the bank if you want.
Yeah, you can use that in any of your movies. We'll just take a 50-50 cut.
Yeah. Yeah. If you need me to come and do voiceover, we can do that.
Yeah, so what is that character to flesh it out? Guy who likes horror cons?
Let's let him take care of the fleshing out.
Okay, so all we're bringing to the table is us doing this voice.
Us doing this voice. Being real creepy about it. Yes. Super breathy.
Let's take that to the David Bank.
Do you have any shout outs, Brandon?
I do.
Get to those shout outs.
Oh, you want me to read them?
Yeah, I want you to. God, it's like you've never done this before.
I haven't. Okay, so here's the shout outs on the last episode we did, episode 111, which we did 2 weeks ago.
We did.
While talking about how we had missed 2 weeks, but we hardly ever missed 2 weeks.
Yep.
So, first off, we have a reply from Kapow, the Pop Culture Podcast, our podcast nemesis, who, in the last episode, we questioned the legitimacy of them happening to draw me
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
as the winner of their t-shirt. They said officials from the podcast bank were on hand during the t-shirt prize drawing to make sure the results were legitimate. Brandon's win was totally random, fair and square. Cranking our bitter rivalry up another notch is just a fortunate bonus. They posted a picture of the name drawn out of their customized coffee cup, which is bullshit. We should have one.
I'll get right on that.
Another podcast commented and said, guess what I picked up a couple years ago at a book sale, still haven't read it, and posted a copy of The Demonologist, which we talked about in the last episode, written by Gerald Brittle. I wanted to say Gerard Butler for some reason. In between filming 300, he wrote a book called The Demonologist about the guy who's suing Warner Brothers. Stephen Hines, the Diamond Man, I'm trying to use it.
Yeah, keep using it, Brandon. It'll grow on you.
Said, great episode, guys. If they're making another Indiana Jones movie, then I certainly hope it isn't embarrassingly horrible as the last one. Oh, and when Brandon asked Rem to hit him with his Dino, I was relieved that he meant a cartoon impression. I didn't. It just was a happy accident.
Yeah.
And then the illustrious Viscount Terry W. Irvin II said, Remington Hitchcock has no clue about Lucille Ball, but references Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And way to draw first blood, Brandon Full. I was ready for you to belt out a Sylvester Stallone voice. They drew first blood.
That's definitely not Sylvester Stallone. That's Sylvester the Cat. And a poor rendition at best.
Oh, there's a difference between the two of them?
Yeah.
I'm in the Expendables. I think your Sylvester Stallone. I think your Sylvester Stallone is just as dubious as my Sylvester the Cat.
Touche.
To be fair.
Touche. So if you have any questions or comments or you'd like to hear yourself on air, you can call us at 978 DU-OGRES. That's 978-386-4737. You can also reach us on Twitter at Dueling Ogres, email us at duelingogres@gmail.com, or leave a comment on the Facebook page, as most people are wont to do.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure to subscribe to our website, duelingogres.com/subscribe. You can get emails for when we upload new stuff. Or you can subscribe to us on YouTube. When the episodes go up, ding that little bell and you'll get the notifications.
Yeah, ding it.
Yeah, ding it. I mean, it's not the video, but we'll get there. I'm still working on my studio.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be something that'll come down the line here. I have to buy audio foam in very small amounts over a long period of time because that shit is expensive.
We just need to get like a square foot and we'll push ourselves in together and just record behind that square foot. I don't know how audio foam works. We wrap ourselves with it.
Yeah, okay. That's what we do. But if you want to support that endeavor, you can actually go to our website, click on the Bazaar link up at the top, and buy some shirts.
Yeah, we have shirts now.
We have shirts. We have Dueling Ogres logo shirts in male and female cuts.
Yeah.
In several different flavors of color. It's like a rainbow in there. It's like a cereal. It's like Trix.
Yeah. With an X.
With an X. We've come full circle.
We're hoping to have some more logos, some more shirts at some point.
Yes.
I've been drawing up some ideas. Remington's going back through old episodes to find catchphrases and stuff.
Yeah.
So we talked about it last episode. We found a good balance between a way to sell shirts made to order without us having to order them in bulk.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we'll have more shirts up there at some point. Realistically, I wouldn't look for them anytime soon, but we are working towards having more designs too.
That's
then
right.
You can buy 1 million shirts.
Yeah,
you can support us with shirts.
You can support us through
all
shirts.
Fucking day.
Yes.
In fact, if you don't want to buy shirts, if you want to just mail us your old shirts, we can use that for soundproofing, right? Is that how sound works?
Yeah, that's how sound works.
Yeah. So
mail us your old shirts.
Give us shirts.
I'll put it through the chipper and then turn it into a fluff and then pack it into the walls.
And finally, the 2.5-year long con of Dueling Ogres has been revealed. That all of this has been to collect old shirts from people across the world.
That's right.
Yes, we just Ocean's 11'd you. Over there's a tiny Asian man in a suitcase.
So if anybody, I know that I'm plugging the hell out of the website and everything, but we haven't had a lot of articles go up recently. That's one of the reasons why I kind of changed it here at the end. But we are still wanting to do them. So if anybody has any interest about writing about anything, you could write about comics, you could write about movies, you could do interviews with people, anything you want to do. We had one a while back that was a how to knit a link hat.
Yeah, that's something I really liked. The girl who written that titled it Adventures in Nerd Crafting.
Yeah.
And I really liked the idea of having an ongoing series of Adventures in Nerd Crafting and getting some of like the DIY nerd crafting stuff as sort of a running series. So if you do any of that stuff.
Yeah, knitting, cosplay, you make your own cosplay outfits, painting miniatures, anything like that, making your own magic cards.
Yeah, any of that stuff, if you want to do a quick or long how-to on it and send us our way, we'll put it there. We'll put links to all of your stores and everything. We will whore you hard.
That's right, which is what she said.
Mm.
And finally, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or find us on iHeartRadio or Satchel or YouTube, like I said before. Satchel, you can donate to the show, but really just go buy a shirt.
Yeah.
Go buy a shirt. I love Satchel. Don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where it's just like, oh man, I have to download another app. Well, you don't have to download another app if you don't want to. You can just go buy a shirt.
Yeah, it's less like putting out a tin cup and saying, please give us nickels.
Yeah.
Now it's saying, buy
We're
a shirt,
providing you a product.
and you get something.
That's right.
Is there shipping? Do you know what the shipping is like on those shirts?
Yeah,
'Cause you
about
ordered
$5.
some test ones for us.
Yeah.
What's the price of the shirts?
$20.99.
Okay.
$20.99 and then like $5 shipping.
So you're only
and
like
handling.
$25 for a shirt.
Yeah.
$25 for a shirt, that's nothing.
That's
nothing. Get over it.
That is a quarter of a century in time.
Maybe I should cut out me telling people to get over it. I know that's a little shitty. $25 is still $25.
I mean, as long as you acknowledge that you're being a shithead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get us all over your body.
Wait.
With the shirt. You get all over your body with the shirt.
So until next week, Ogres, I'm sorry for Brandon. Keep your clubs blunt.
And your tusks sharp. I'm Brandon.
Good night. I'm Brandon. Yay! It was like a Muppet walked into my room all of a sudden. Yay!
You do good shit.
Yeah, what we have here is, man.
I was honestly, I was pleasantly surprised with the movie, especially with when you sent the link and were like, I'm sorry. I mean, obviously, like, you can tell that the way the video is done is kind of amateurish as far as you could tell you weren't working with high quality equipment.
No.
But
or high quality crew.
I thought the sense of humor, like there were times where I genuinely laughed out loud. I thought it was really well written. I mean, I could see what you mean. Even I think at the end during the credits, there's some sort of post credits behind the scenes stuff where the guy who played the Bachelor is talking and looks deadly serious as he's like, half this fucking movie's made up. The script constantly changes. I don't know how we're supposed to film this thing.
Yeah. And the sad part is it's half made up because he wouldn't remember his lines.
Right.
So were the
so it's due to him.
were the clips popped in of like overacting alerts? Were those kind of a jab at him then?
They were. Like, he's an incredibly good friend of mine, like for years and years and years, and he has no business in front of a camera. But a distinct lack of other volunteers resulted in this.
Yeah.
And they're complete jabs at him, and he hates it. The zooming in on the lone wolf tattoo we've mocked him for nearly 2 decades it was like a little love letter to us by us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, and then force people to buy it that don't know what they're getting into.
Right, yeah.
So how did you manage to book the blow up doll? Did you have to go through the agent for it, or?
Well, interestingly enough, we had in upwards of $1,100 for the budget for this.
Oh man.
So I went to adamandeve.com and I found the cheapest blow up latex doll I could, and I bought 4 or 5 of her.
Uh-huh.
Because I had delusions that if I could cut one open, I could get a really small woman to fit inside it. that didn't work out at all. At all.
What I love about it,
the more I think about it, the funnier it gets.
Isn't it? Wouldn't that be great?
like you're
Yeah.
talking a small woman inside there kind of wearing it like a skin.
Yeah, like my personal, creature from the Black Lagoon. My rubber suited monster.
I mean, at
But
that
that
point,
didn't
you'd
work
have
out.
to retire. It would have been your magnum opus.
At that point, if that would have worked, I would have taken it on tour because,
Get the live
That's just-
action version.
it really is. And they're just, there wasn't in my circle and extended circle wasn't someone thin enough or slight enough that was actually willing to actually step inside the doll.
Yeah.
What I love about that doll is it looks like the cheapest, most you got it from a sex shop in some sort of Eastern Bloc country.
Who doesn't? That's her, Lethal Lolita. And she was the cheapest, the absolute cheapest. The most money we spent was on that giant double-ended dildo.
How much does something like that
I was
run?
going to say,
Just
I
out of
bet those
curiosity.
things are freaking expensive.
Well, usually those were, at the time, around $200.
Holy shit.
But we got it at cost because we used this sex shop to shoot in that you saw in the movie, and we let the guy be in the movie. And so he's like, oh, I'll just
The
give it
old
to you
guy?
for cost. No, he's actually the grandfather of the dude he's in the scene with, Kevin. He just seems like he belonged there, so we said, hey, bring Dan over. But we named the giant double-ended dildo Thor, and to recoup this, the movie's still in the red, so it came out through Sub Rosa. It's been on a couple DVDs. We couldn't make $1,100 back on it. It's that bad. So I had everyone sign the dildo and sold it on eBay for like $200. So we got some money back.
Have you thought about maybe leasing out the Lethal Lolitas?
There's none left. They
Oh,
were
really?
all destroyed in the making of this.
I have to
That's
say,
unfortunate. Did you ever have to do any patch jobs?
No, I bought 4.
Yeah.
So, I sliced the one up for the suit, which didn't work.
Right.
Then I tried to just take the arms off and have someone use it like a gloved hand sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that didn't work either. So, yeah.
I love the idea of somebody sitting at the adamandeve.com warehouse with a puzzled look on their face as somebody orders 4 inflatable sex dolls at the same time.
Yeah, 4 of those, and I probably got a DVD too. So it's like something weird.
This guy's having a real party, huh?
4 blow-up sex dolls and Ass Busters number 6. What is up with this guy?
And a giant double-sided dildo.
And then, whoa.
And
look at that thing.
everybody knows Ass Busters 5 was the better movie, hands down.
Well, yeah, but it left so many unanswered questions. I had to pick up 6.
I gotta say, and then we'll actually get into the interview proper with the introductions and stuff, but the sex shop has legitimately one of my favorite jokes that I've seen in a movie in a long time. Whenever the guy sells them the blow-up doll and they leave and he's doing his evil laugh,
Yeah.
and then it pans slowly over and he's just being tickled by another guy.
Yeah, there's some funny stuff in there. It just, you got to wade through so much crap to get to it.
Yeah, it kept me entertained for sure.
I personally feel the blow up doll ripping the penis off blowjob scene is genius, just from what he's saying.
Yeah.
the entire time while he's getting blown.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It just that's it. That's great. And there's so many stupid things in there. Like when he kills me. We wanted to hey, we should do something like Jaws. So that's where the license plate comes from.
Oh, okay.
Like I've been swimming around the ocean eating shit.
I love that whole progression too, where the doll is cool with you for a while. Like you guys take a shower together and have that really slow love scene before you're laying shirtless outside looking at the stars together.
Oh God. It was fun. I'll give us that. But I think it would have been a great short.
Yeah.
Feature, not so much. But when we went in there and he did we get the little blow up doll keychain and he's reenacting. It's because we ran out of money and everyone quit. It was literally, it's true. There's budgetary constraints.
Yeah,
and now we have to act this out.
There's a couple points I know. Like at one thing, he's talking about how the blow-up doll killed somebody, and he's like, "Yeah, I wish they'd filmed this scene. It would have been a lot better if you'd actually seen it."
Right, which is true. Totally true.
Are we all loosened up enough?
I like to think so.
Yeah, well, I know. I started pretty loose.
Good. I was really hoping I didn't have to pull out the jelly.
I come pre-lubed.
Okay,
That's
good.
the benefits of being a fat guy in humid weather.
Yeah. See, I'm the same way with all the butter,
There you go.
All right. And we'll go in a count. And 3, 2, 1. Hello, ogres, and welcome to episode 112. Thank you for joining us as always on this Abby something Tuesday evening, Earth date May 9th, 2017. Tuesday evening, Earth date May 9th, 2017.
All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes. I'm going to suck down a cigarette real quick and take a pee.
All right.
I want to keep you abreast of my bodily functions, apparently.
Thank you so much. Remember to wash your hands after both.
All right.
You don't want to get your penis addicted to nicotine.
I actually smoked through my penis, so it's one and done.
Holy shit. Why are you not on tour?
The cool thing about having a really good guest is that you get really good conversation, and it's really hard to stop in the middle and take care of the nature that calls.
Nature? So when you get a really good guest, let me know. I'll listen.
Dude, you've been awesome so far.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. I mean...
I like doing these.
Yeah. It's always, you never know. We're not new to interviews, but it's still this constant battle because we're both pretty awkward when it comes to them. So sometimes we really miss the mark and we'll interview somebody it's difficult to find a common ground. So the whole conversation seems awkward.
Yeah, those are sometimes the most fun things to listen to, though.
Ah, that's true.
I'm a huge fan of like awkward silences.
Yeah.
I love planning them. I like doing them. I like watching people squirm because I'm a jackass that should be left alone. So it really makes me kind of happy.
We're pretty big fans of the awkward silence as well. If
Nice.
There are a lot of times where I'm the editor of the podcast, and I mean, I'll chop everything up real well, and I'll take out ums and stutters and this and that. But every once in a while, there is a joke that requires the awkward silence, and I'll make sure to stretch that just enough.
I feel like the awkward silence loses something in audio versus visual, though.
Well, you have to get the timing right. Especially in an audio format, timing is paramount when it comes to the awkward silence. All right. And clear. All right. Thanks again, David.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and I would definitely like to have you back on because I had a lot more questions. Like I said, I tried to focus more on like the horror writing aspect of it, but I mean, you've done so much that I'd love to get more of your opinions on other things, like even the process of producing and all that, you know. I could have talked for hours, so I think I'm in love with you. I'm just going to say it.
It's okay. It's all right. Now, when you smoke through your penis, do you at least stick a breast mint in there afterwards? Because I'm not going near it without some sort of, Altoid or something.
I use Orbits.
Okay. All right. I know that, depending on the size, a Tic Tac might fit right in.
I appreciate you pontificating on the size of my penis, David.
That's all right. It's more of a, general, like, car crash, rubbernecking curiosity.
That pretty much describes my love life in general. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to slow down and check it out.
Like, hey, that's interesting. I didn't know people could look like that.
Oh, shit. And now I can't breathe.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we'll let you go, but again, thanks. And I'm sure I will be in contact with you again at some point, especially as it gets closer to the release of Rotten Tail. I mean, that's like a year out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. If you'd be interested in doing something here in a couple months, I can be in touch.
Sure, anytime.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be a book or something coming out.
All right, man. All right, well, you have a good day.
You too, sirs. Thank you.
It was nice meeting you. Bye.
Bye.
I'm constantly disappointed.
I know. You have that same reaction every time, too.
It's just me mulling over all of the good things that we have and trying to weigh it against all of the terrible decisions that you've made in our friendship.
Yeah.
Like not seeing Mel Brooks movies.
That's the main one I can think of.
Yeah.
One of the few, actually.
It's really the only thing. The only thing that's the most disappointing.
Yeah. Everything else is kind of on a level playing field of disappointment.
Yeah.
Should we have said who he was? going into the interview?
No, because I say it.
Okay. I know that you say it. I just didn't know.
I don't like repeating it. And
Gotcha.
I find that I've done that a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't like doing it.
God, my eye is so itchy. I touched something with a cat on it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Just my left eye.
That's the terriblest.
Lisa left eye, Brandon.
Yeah, I've been doing that a lot lately. Between just the pollens being so big or so high right now, and then the cats on top of all of it. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I just want to murder myself. Been snorting stuff up my nose and taking pills and...
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it would be if it weren't all antihistamines. But I digress. All right.